Welcome to another episode of Arbitration Life. I am Janette, Brin.
And I'm Hana, Doumal.
So Hana, I'm feeling like a little bit of back to reality now. I've been away from the office, traveling for my son's graduation.
Yay.
I was in quarantine. And then plus I took some time off to focus on my women's empowerment event for my personal brand, Caribbean Posh.
Oh, right. Well, welcome back, Janette, and congratulations on your son's graduation and also on your event. And I've heard that the Honorable Don Smith, who is the BVI Attorney General and who's a former advisor to the BVI IC, was one of the guest speakers at your event.
Yeah.
Talk about women empowerment.
Indeed.
So I'm glad to mention it actually because it makes a perfect transition to introduce our guest today, who is another amazing woman who, like Dawn, is also an arbitrator. Would you like to do the honors, Janet?
Yes, I sure would. Yes, so today's guest is a chartered arbitrator and accredited mediator, legally qualified in Ontario, New York, and England, Wales. A multicultural Canadian, she speaks English and French fluently, plus conversational Spanish and a little German and Mandarin. A powerhouse of a woman, I would say.
Yes, and she's principal of Aculex Transnational Inc. She's also an educator at several institutions, including Georgetown Law in DC. She's also the co-founder of ArbitralWomen, and she also founded and still directs the annual Vis East International Arbitration Moot. Please welcome Louise Barrington. Welcome to the show, Louise. How are you?
I'm very well. It's great to see you again, Hana and Janette.
Yes, great to formally meet you virtually, at least.
So where are you at the moment, Louise?
I am at my apartment in Toronto, which is why you can see my kitchen behind me. Sorry.
No, it's totally fine.
Nice.
Okay, so shall we start?
Yeah. I'm gonna get the interview started by first asking you, Louise, could you please tell us how you got to first be an arbitrator and how did you obtain your first appointment?
It's sort of the same thing. I was very interested in arbitration for a long time. And as you probably know, I was in Paris working at the Institute of World Business Law, and then they sent me to Hong Kong to start ICC Asia. So of course I made good contacts while I was at ICC Asia. After I left ICC Asia, I was on my own for a while, trying to decide what I would do, whether I would stay in Hong Kong or not. And I got an appointment from the ICC. And I believe it was because I was fairly good friends at the time with one of the counsel there. And she had a very small case involving a Vietnamese shipment of steel. And I was named as arbitrator. And I was trying to remember whether it was maybe the UK ICC National Committee, or whether it was just her idea. But that's how I got the first one. And actually that settled the night before the hearing. So I didn't actually have to write the award. And the next one I got was a party appointed arbitrator, as a party appointed arbitrator. And that was by a Korean party. I think I'm probably the first woman ever to be appointed as an arbitrator by a Korean party. But that was because I had spent quite a lot of time with counsel and also one of the executives of the company, talking to them about ICC arbitration in general. I had spent a couple of hours just sitting in my office talking to them about it because neither of them was familiar with arbitration and they thought they had a case coming up. And so they had talked to me about it. And then a year later, when I was not with the ICC anymore, they called.
Nice.
Wow, that's impressive. And to follow up on that, actually, what advice would you give to arbitration practitioners who are looking to get their first appointment?
Oh, to get the first appointment, It is hard. And I must say, I had no idea at the time how lucky I was to have those two to start off. Now, mind you, I didn't get dozens of after that. It was still very, very slow starting because you have to be visible. You have to be competent, obviously, and you have to be visible. And I think that the best way to get an arbitration as arbitrator now is to be really good arbitration counsel and to make it known that you want to do arbitration as counsel, because that way people that admire you professionally will think of you when they're trying to think of someone who can decide a case for them. I think really it comes, there are all kinds of things, doing the writing, being the go-to person at your firm, all of those things are fine. But to get that first appointment, you really have to have someone who has faith in you. And the way they're going to have faith in you is to have worked with you and been impressed or seen you work or even pleaded against you.
Yeah, oh, very true. And hopefully by institutions as well.
By
institutions as well.
But institutions, yeah, I think the institutions, it's a bit more difficult because, of course, the institutions generally want to have experienced arbitrators on their lists. They're less likely to use arbitrators who've never had a case before, although that I know is changing. And I think it shows great courage on the part of the institutions that they're willing to give people their first chance. And they probably won't do it unless the person's been highly recommended to them. So it's another thing, have friends.
Yeah,
have friends who'll stick up have friends who'll stick up for you.
This is a great advice.
So then what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned as an arbitrator?
Oh, the most important lesson I've learned as an arbitrator. Was that question on the list? I guess for me, it is to remember that I am working for the parties. And so whatever I'm doing, I want it to work out in such a way that the parties will feel like they've been heard. Does that make sense? I want the procedure to be professional. I want it to be fair. I want it to be transparent. I want it to be efficient. And I want people to feel that they've been listened to and that I've understood their point of view, even if I didn't agree with it.
I think it's great. It's really helping the party resolve their disputes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's great. So, Louise, you frequently act as sole arbitrator or co-arbitrator of arbitral tribunals, and you told us your first appointment and your second appointment. Could you please tell us what makes an arbitrator a good one?
Oh, I think someone once told me that the best international arbitrators are those with open minds. I don't think that that's all you need, but I think it's really important to go into the arbitration and, as this person used to say, leave your bags at the door and remember that the way you do things in your home country is not necessarily the way that the parties will do things in their country, especially with international arbitration, where people are coming from different legal systems, different cultures, different expectations, different economic points of view. They're going to have very different ideas about even what a contract is. I mean, if you take an Englishman's version of the contract and you take a Chinese person's view of the contract, you'll get a very different answer if you ask them what that is and what it's about, because they're looking at it from a different angle. Yeah. And so as an arbitrator, you have to be aware of that. So I think that's important. Obviously, things like being prepared is really important, because if you, unlike judges, we get the cases way ahead of time before we have to actually decide them. And so we have the luxury of being able to read ahead and contextualize things, so that when we hear somebody say something at the hearing, it can ring a bell because, that was a question that I had when I was reading through it before the hearing. Whereas if you hadn't read it before, if you weren't prepared, it might just go by completely unnoticed.
No, definitely preparation and open mind.
Yeah. Obviously,
That's-
things like good writing skills and organizational skills and all of that stuff are important as well. And that comes with experience. I learn everything. Every time I do an arbitration, I learn something else. Every time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So speaking of learning, you have taught international, commercial, construction, and arbitration law at the University of Ottawa, King's College London, City University of Hong Kong, La Trobe University in Melbourne, and Georgetown Law in Washington, D.C.
And
All
a few
very
others.
impressive. And a few
And a
others.
few others, sorry.
We couldn't fit them
Yeah,
all.
the list
It's
was-
been a long career, I'll tell you.
So what is your favorite thing about teaching?
You know, I think that any person who loves teaching, which I do, is probably most motivated by one thing, and that is when the energy transfers, when the students get it.
Yeah.
And you can see in their eyes when they get it. I think the best compliment I've ever had was from a student who was doing the course. It was the last course he had to do for his master's degree. And it was the only one that he could do at that particular time. He had no interest or knowledge of arbitration. And at the end of the course, he came up to me and he said, you know, he said, this has really opened my eyes. I had no idea about this. He explained the situation. He said, I'm going to do another LLM in dispute resolution and arbitration. He was hooked. And I thought, wow, like that was exciting.
That's impressive. Yeah. They just one seminar and then.
Yeah.
So
But that's, in a way, that's what happened to me, because that's how I got hooked on arbitration. You know, I was in a course in Paris with Emmanuel Gaillard, one of the gods, may he rest in peace. And they were talking about the Pyramids Plateau case in Egypt. And I just thought, wow, this is fantastic. This is what I've been looking for. I mean, this is just the clashing of the cultures, the different things that become important in different situations. And of course, we were following the case as it happened in that classroom. Yeah. And so really, he's responsible for my discovering arbitration and being, as the French say, séduite, seduced by it, because it is seductive. You get into it and you just never want to leave.
Wow, that's such a great story. Thank you, Louise. Now let's talk about ArbitralWomen that you co-founded with Mirez Philippe. Please tell us what led to ArbitralWomen's creation.
Well, it was a long time coming, but it started in 1993 in Bahrain, because that was my very first international arbitration conference when I had just joined the ICC that year or the previous year, I can't remember, I guess the previous year. And it was a really fun time for me. It was my first experience of the Middle East. We arrived at midnight, etc. But because I was such a keen networker at the time, being new to the ICC, I had a list of all of the delegates on paper, and I was going through and meeting everybody that I could and checking off when I met them. And I met, I would say, out of the 200, it was a big conference for the time. It was an ICA conference, 250 people, big conference. And there were 9 women, I think, registered, and only 1 woman out of 24 speakers was, you know, on the podium. And anyway, as I was going around trying to meet everybody, I guess on the second day at the coffee table, all the women that were in the room seemed to just have congregated naturally at the coffee table. And we started to talk, and we looked around and we thought, you know, we're the only women here. There's hardly anybody else. You know, are there others? Where are the others? And so I got curious, and that's how it started. I wrote to them, and I wrote to some other people that I knew, women who were in arbitration. Vera van Houten wasn't there at that convention, but I wrote to her. Teresa Giovannini, Chiara, there were Antonio Simolizza. These are people that have been in arbitration forever, and they were actually established when I got there. But they were so visible and so memorable because there were so few of them. And anyway, I started a chain letter and got a whole bunch of people. And eventually I thought we were having a conference at the Institute, and I sent out an invitation for dinner and got 60 responses. And that was the beginning of it. That was the energy where people kind of looked around and said, wow, there are lots of other women, and why don't I know about them? Because I'm only hearing from the men. There are only men on the platforms. The idea of having a woman speaker was still pretty novel in most cases. So we do whole seminars with not a woman speaker. And so anyway, Mireille realized what I was interested in doing, and she caught on immediately, and she has run with it. And I must say, you know, they talk about genius being 5% idea and 95% perspiration. I take credit for the original idea. She gets the credit for the perspiration. So it would never have happened without Mireille. But eventually, and it went from a chat group on Yahoo, and then we became incorporated under French law as a nonprofit. And then gradually we've had more and more people join us. There was great reluctance at first, I'll tell you. People were afraid to join something that was all women because they thought that they would be considered to be bra-burning feminists.
Wow.
And so it's grown to over 1,000 people now, 1,000 women, and we have all kinds of programs now. It's extremely active, and people are, you know, knocking on the doors to get in now, which is definitely absolutely surprising and amazing to Mireille and me. But we are thrilled, of course.
No, yeah, I remember going to this event in Paris, one of my first events as an associate, and it was an ArbitralWomen event, and it was something about mentoring, and I found it fascinating just to see all those women out there with so much experience and who were able to share it with me, and I thought that was great. So yeah, thank you for that.
Well, mentoring is really important. We never thought about mentors at the time because, well, role models, there were so few. There were really so few. I suppose for me, Vera van Houten was the role model because she was such a great all-round person, you know, lovely woman, a bunch of kids, great husband, you know, and this brilliant arbitrator as well. And I just thought, wow, that's wonderful. But, you know, we were never really close. I did have a case with her as arbitrator. There were so few people that you could actually look to and say, oh, you know, I can do that too. It just didn't occur to most people.
Yeah, I like the way you describe it. I could do that too. I wish someone had said that to me.
So Louise, in addition to being a co-founder of ArbitralWomen, you also founded and still direct the annual East International Arbitration Moot, which takes place annually in Hong Kong and was held virtually for the last 2 years for obvious reasons. What led to the creation of the East?
Well, I had been invited to arbitrate at the VIS in Vienna, I think in maybe 2000 for the first time. And I was just totally blown away by the experience. I thought it was just absolutely fabulous. From 2 points of view. First of all, I could see that the students were just so committed and so enthusiastic and so polished. They were so good. They'd worked so hard. But also from the arbitrator's point of view, in 2000, I'm a baby arbitrator. I haven't had my first case yet. And so to find myself on a panel with, Martin Hunter or Alan Redfern was, it was fantastic.
You actually were on a panel with them.
With both of them, but at different times. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
At that time, they were going to the VIS regularly, and lots of other people, very high profile people. Serge Lazarev used to go, one of the brilliant French minds. Lots of people would go. Gaillard was there, Pierre Maya was there, all these people that taught me and were there at the very beginning of my career. I found them and I was actually able to sit on a panel with them and watch, maybe not exactly how they would do an arbitration, but at least to get a good feeling for how they manage things and how they talk to people. And that was wonderful.
Wow, such a great story.
Mhm.
And it's good that we're talking about the, I mean, this is the Vis East, the
Yeah.
Vis Moot, but we
This
were
is the VIS.
talking-
So this is, this was why the VIS is so fantastic. And also I could see the networking happening and all of that. I didn't know about it at the time, but I could see it. There was a great social stuff going on. So anyway, the second time I went back, I looked around and the city, I was teaching with City University at the time, and City University had sent a team which was being coached by someone else. And so I went there, and what I noticed then was that there were hardly any Asians at all at the VIS in Vienna. And so I went to Eric Bergsten, who was then he's the founder and was then the director still, and said, why aren't there any Asians? And he said, well, it's so far away and they don't do mooting that much. And he was right. There was really no mooting culture in Asia at the time. They were still doing the, listen to the professor, memorize it, and then spit it back on the exam. And that was law school at the time, frankly. And so the idea of doing practical things like the moot was really quite unknown in Asia. And so anyway, I said, would you be amenable to letting me do this in Asia? Either starting it off, I originally thought it would be a funnel into the Vienna VIS. And Eric said, no, anybody who does the VIS is going to have an international experience. This is not going to be, a pre-moot, it's going to be a moot. So that's how we did it. And so with a one-page letter, Eric and Glenn Healy and I signed on, and I got the permission from the director of the Vienna VIS to start one in Hong Kong. In the second year, he was doubtful about it. He really didn't know whether it was a good idea or not. But the second year, I invited him to come, and he actually judged a moot, a final.
Okay.
So I think that was a thrill for him because he had never judged one. He'd been running them, but he wasn't judging them. And he saw that we were staying very close to the ethos of the VIS in Vienna, which is that it's not just a commercial competition where people are looking for prizes or for money. It is an educational experience in the form of competition. And that's always been our subtitle, if you like.
No, it very much.
And over the 18 years of the moot, we've gone from 14 teams to 147 teams, and now there's no question, like there are lots, we could fill the moot if we wanted to with Asian teams, especially China and India. We have to actually be careful not to take too many people from China, or too many teams from China or India or United States, because it will make it difficult to schedule, because of course the teams are not allowed to argue against teams from their own country.
Yeah. No, definitely.
But we could easily fill the whole moot with Asians if we wanted to.
And you've done a fantastic job, and I had the chance to be an arbitrator for the FECs for the last few years.
Yes, and we've much appreciated it. Thank you very much. And I hope you'll be back next year.
Exactly, I will. I hope it will be in person. I really hope.
I hope that it'll be in person too, but frankly, I am not counting on it. We're making plan A and plan B, and we'll decide a little bit later which one we go with. But I do fear, I never thought I would say this, but I think we may have to do a third one virtually.
Wow.
That's, it's good for, there's some teams that can't afford to travel. And so they were able to have the moot experience to some extent. To the extent everybody else did. And I'm talking about a team from Myanmar, I'm talking about a team from Canada, I'm talking about a team from India. Those teams just hadn't come before, and they were able to come because it was virtual. So that's a silver lining.
Absolutely. And hopefully, at least pre-moots, and this will keep going, this everything virtual for pre-moots, etc. No, definitely. And now to echo what you said a bit earlier about arbitration in general, I want to ask you, would you say that you chose arbitration or did arbitration choose you?
Well, as I said, I think that it was really a discovery. And once I discovered it, I realized that that's what I wanted. So whether it chose me, I don't know if it chose me. I think I chose it. I thought this is what I wanted to do. I had a bit of a slow start because I went back to Canada. I was teaching other things, but I wasn't teaching arbitration. It was really when I started with the ICC that I was able to really start seriously into thinking about arbitration and talking about arbitration and finally doing it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
They didn't have courses in arbitration then. They didn't have dispute resolution courses. Or if they did, they were 20 students and off in some corner and nobody knew about it.
So now, Louise, now we're all in the middle of this ongoing pandemic. Besides coming to the BVI to visit us here at the BVI IAC, what would the one fun thing you would like to do when the pandemic settles down?
Oh, you mean what I want to do in the BVI or just generally in my life? Well, I'd love to come to BVI. I've had some connection with BVI for some time because BVI and Hong Kong have a lot of business in common. There's a lot of Hong Kong investment in BVI.
Yeah.
And I've done work in the Bahamas, and I've got a sister living in Turks and Caicos. So it's an area that I have not really explored very much, but I've been to a few places a few times. And I haven't been to BVI, so I'd love to get back.
Great.
Meet you in person, Hana. So Hana I know in person. Janette, I'm sorry, Janette.
Yeah.
We've only met online,
Yeah.
but maybe I'll be lucky enough to get a case there. It'd be fantastic. But I'm really looking forward to being able to see people face to face. This is wonderful. This is great that we can do this. But it'd be so much nicer if I could give you a hug at the end, you know?
Yeah, totally agree.
It'd be much nicer in person. Well, next time when you come visit us soon.
That's next time, until next time. And I hope it's not going to be too far away.
So we have our traditional bonus question that we love to ask at the end.
Oh yeah, is this the surprise?
Yeah.
No, because you've seen other episodes. So now we know you know.
Okay.
So what should we ask her if she's, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Janette.
We're trying to gauge here what we think you might be. What fan are you? Are you Boston legal? Are you a Boston legal watcher or Suits?
Oh, I did watch a lot of Suits for a while, but I got bored with it because it got kind of same old, but I did like the first part of it. But you know what I'm addicted to right now is Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, okay. Another Shonda Rhimes fan.
Yeah, if I hadn't been a lawyer, I would like to have been a doctor, but.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much for that, Louise. See, she was ready.
You were ready. I'm so impressed.
Well, that's all we have time for today, Louise. I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us a bit about what you do and, you know, all that good stuff. All
the secrets behind like the creation of ArbitralWomen, the VCs, like things that we've never heard before. It's really great to know now.
Well, I'm glad there are some people that haven't heard these stories before, because I can keep telling them that way.
Well, in a public forum now, so I feel like more people will know. Thank you so much, Louise.
It's been my pleasure.
All right.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
I look forward to seeing more of your interviews.
Oh, thank you. Bye, Louise.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Louise, for being with us today. It was so great to talk to you.
Yes, I just want to say once again, many, many thanks to Louise Barrington for taking the time out of her busy schedule to join us here on Arbitration Life. For more Arbitration Life, be sure to hit the subscribe button, plus follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Arbitration Life.